Well, hello everyone. I'm Jennifer Corduff, contributing faculty in the Riley College of Education, and I'm joined by Heather Pedersen, who's also contributing faculty in the Riley College of Education. What we want to talk to you about today is um, this situation in our culture where happiness tends to be the new rich, health is the new wealth, inner peace is the new success, and kindness is the new cool. And although we really want to promote those things, sometimes we have found that as faculty in higher ed, we can approach the ragged edge of burnout and not being grateful and getting a little cranky. And so as Heather and I were thinking about this, we wanted to frame it differently for people like us who are working online and might feel that way. Um, so our reality as faculty in any given day, these are pictures of our kids and our grandkids. So we could be happy. Those are Heather's beautiful children on the left-hand side. And then there's my granddaughter, Olivia, right there in the middle with the sad face. Maybe sometimes you feel sad. Maybe sometimes as faculty you feel confused, like Heather's son there. And then, well, there's McKenna on the right, who I get really stressed when I look at that picture because it looks like she's screaming. But my son framed it a completely different way. He says, oh, it's singing practice. So isn't it interesting how one picture can be or interpreted in several different ways? I was looking at it as a negative, and my son was looking at it as an opportunity to open your throat and sing. So I'm gonna go over a couple more emotions, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Heather. Then there's okay. So these pictures are grading processes in the land of me. So why doesn't the student listen to what I'm saying? Why don't they just turn things in on time? And then what? It's due today, or what? You want me to do what? And then there's, hey, wait a minute, plagiarism is not allowed. And you can't have 16 grandparents die in one term. And all of those things that we we get as faculty on a regular basis. And then there's the grading tsunami where you just feel like you're going to suffocate under all of those notifications you need to review, grades you need to post, and you're just like, please make it stop. Make it stop for 1 minute.
And interestingly enough, as we go through those photos, there are adults, there's children, and realistically, if you sat and thought about it a moment, as online faculty and working for a university, many, if not all of us, experience all of those feelings on any given day. Not every day is great. Some days are pretty darn good, and not all days are terrible. But oftentimes we kind of experience, depending on what emails are coming into our inbox, depending on what types of phone calls or meetings we have that day, we really have a wide range of feelings on any given day. And when the negative feelings start to be kind of, make you feel isolated and like you're kind of in this alone, we can start to feel that dreaded word burnout. So our emotions really can sabotage our ability to be productive, creative, loving, and I think we have to sometimes give ourselves a break. Interestingly enough, if you move to the next slide, when we were doing some research for our presentation to take to National Harbor this past summer, we learned that in a major study that the more committed faculty were to their institutions, the more likely they were to experience really high levels of workplace stress. There were higher experiences of depression, anxiety, and overall negative feelings. And interestingly enough, this one really struck me, that workplace stress across 26 different occupations found that university faculty members were among the worst professionals in terms of self-reported psychological well-being. And I thought, wow, that's really, really interesting. Now, it didn't differentiate between on-site and online, but many of you may have experienced both settings. I know Jennifer and I both have. And I will say that when we work at home, although there are many, many positives and wonderful things that come with being able to work from our home offices, it can be very lonely and very isolating. And even though we don't have to get up and get ready and drive an hour and do that major commute, we can still absolutely experience burnout. So, how do you recognize when you're moving towards burnout? What do we do about it? Let's talk about how we recognize it, what we do about it, and some of the tools and the decisions that we make. And I know this. I'll just tell you a quick story about when we were at National Faculty Meeting. Jennifer and I got into our room, and we went to give our presentation. And we had a group of about 12 people sitting there. And we had technology issues. The university did not provide the correct cords that we needed for the iPad to hook to the projector. And we could have handled that two ways. We could have flipped out, stressed out, and went, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? Or we could have taken a moment, pause, take a deep breath, which is what we did, and kind of troubleshoot, and we figured it out.
Well,
So
I
you
carried
don't
my laptop
necessarily.
around, so it worked out real well, you know? I mean, I just carried my laptop around the room, right? And we laughed about it, and
Yes.
the participants laughed about it, and it ended up being a good modeling for what not to do when you're 5 minutes into a presentation and you don't have all the technology working.
So if anyone would like to, you're more than welcome to write down how you recognize when you're moving towards burnout. Or you can just think about it in your mind. You can write on a piece of paper if you're not willing to share. I will just say for myself, I get tired. I absolutely get tired and kind of unmotivated, where I just really, even though I have things on my planner and on my to-do list, I don't look forward to doing those things on those days. And I realize that kind of something needs to give. So yeah, Allison says it becomes hard to concentrate. Absolutely. And yes, it takes you longer to complete a simple task.
And
That is an excellent sign. Headaches, absolutely. Headaches. That's a physical issue that when we stress ourselves out and we burn out, our body will let us know. Our body will let us know, and it's absolutely time to do something about it. So thank you for sharing.
I know.
So what do you, go ahead.
I just noticed myself when I open my email and the first response out of my mouth is "What now?" that I've hit it.
Mm-hmm.
What now is my
Yep.
clue that I need to take a nap right now. So what triggers you? Anyway.
And so what do you do about it? Are any of you willing to kind of share what you do about it? And Jennifer and I have done a lot of thinking about being thankful and gratitude. This whole concept of how gratitude, the more you give, kind of the more you get. And there's a therapist here that being thankful throughout the year could have tremendous benefits on your quality of life. And I will tell you, gratitude right now is having a moment. You cannot pick up a magazine right now or go on Pinterest or go on social media without hearing something about gratitude. And it's for good reason. It's actually, there are research facts that say that those people who practice gratitude ultimately feel better. And Allison says, yes, you walk away from the computer, go get some fresh air. Absolutely. That is an excellent way to kind of stop that negative feeling. Definitely.
Right. And Heather, before I went into higher ed, I spent 23 years in public education. And in my years as a middle school teacher, we would start every day with, well, the principal would say, make it a great day or not. The choice is yours. But then I would whip around to my kiddos and say, make it a great day or else. Rejoice, rejoice. You have no choice. And then we'd go through a list of things that are simple that we were grateful for. I'm alive. I have feet. I have elbows. I have wrists. I can walk. My mouth works, sometimes too well. But all of those little things that are very simple. It was really interesting with the middle schoolers, though, because they would go, oh, yeah, I have two ears, one on either side of my head. And then they would come into the day starting in a posture of gratitude for little things that they normally didn't think about. We had a 5-minute conversation about what our lives would be like without elbows. And so, yeah, think about just the little things that we take for granted. We can get in a car and we can go somewhere. We have family and friends who love us, who we love. Simple, simple, simple.
Absolutely. Yeah, gratitude journals. I actually have a gratitude journal. I bought it, and when I received it, I bought it from Amazon. It was like $8 or $12. It wasn't much at all. And I opened it and I thought, oh, this is kind of juvenile. There were stickers in it and there's bubbles that you write in. Well, I tell you what, I took off writing in that thing and I've written in it every day. I've bought them for my friends, and it's fun. It takes about 1 minute, and it really is uplifting to write down. I have 3 kids, and for them, their main worry is when they come home what they're going to have for a snack before dinner. And so writing about how, you have healthy kids, you have family, you have friends, you have your pets at home, you have a job. If you're in this webinar, you have a job, you're employed. So if we take a moment to look around, and we definitely have things for which to be thankful. And gratitude journals are an excellent way. You don't even need a journal. You can just write it, and you type it in your computer. You can write it on a Post-it note. It definitely helps. Oh, the Walden Journal from Leadership last Christmas. Great idea. I have one as well. They're beautiful. They're very, very nice journals. So excellent. Thanks for sharing, everyone.
Yeah. And there's two sets of research that really help put a research frame around gratitude. So one is intentional serendipity, and it sounds like a hippie thing, but it's actually based on a 10-year longitudinal study on happenstance theory, people making their own luck. People make their own luck because of their intentionality in living and staying grateful. So the 4 components of intentional serendipity are persistence, flexibility, risk-taking, and optimism. Let me say it again. Persistence, flexibility, risk-taking, and optimism. Those 4 dispositions get people farther just in their own emotional state and productivity and well-being than being resistant to change and being pessimistic and thinking things are never going to work out. And the other one, and we all probably know this one, is growth mindset. That's Carol Dweck's work on people either having a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. I'm sure you're a little oversaturated with that one because it's comes up all the time lately. But growth mindset is the ability to just look at opportunities as a learning curve, as something new to learn, as something to be bring new into your life, rather than, okay, I've arrived, I have my doctorate, I'm working online, it's the end of my road, I'm going to do things exactly the way I've always done them. There's so much we can learn from our students because they're in different, especially here, because they're international, they're from everywhere. And it's great to be able to have an open mindset, a growth mindset about what our students can teach us and what we bring to the table with them. So those are 2 research dispositional frames for staying grateful. And then if you worry that you're in burnout, you can safely assume that others are around you too. So sharing your burden is always a little helpful. The power of the spoken word. So don't, especially online, you tend to be isolated. As Heather was saying, we're at our home offices and we are not around people all day sometimes, and just reaching out to someone else and sharing I'm just not feeling it today, or I have 800 things to grade and I'm just kind of done. Even just saying it out loud sometimes to somebody else is really helpful because you feel like your burden is being shared by somebody else.
Absolutely. There was a study done in UCLA And it was basically proven that just verbalizing your feelings, even if you do nothing else about it, just verbalizing your feelings to someone else makes any sadness or anger or pain less intense. So the power of the spoken word should not be forgotten. And we all know that a good social support system, whether it's one friend, whether it's a group of friends, whether it's your partner, whomever it may be, really can help us deal with the stresses of life. We all know how that feels when you hold it in for so long. That's when we kind of start approaching that burnout stage and feel like you kind of want to throw in the towel and be done with whatever is stressing you out. So verbalizing it, even though it isn't always easy and you feel like maybe you're burdening someone, odds are it's going to turn into a conversation and they're going to use you as a listener as well.
And then there's humor. So before we get to that though, think for a minute and use the chat about who do you confide in? Are the people that you're confiding in filling you up, or are they stomping you down? If you're around people that are stomping you down, you probably should think about getting different friends. Because what we're trying with our friends and with our colleagues to do is build each other up and fill each other up. Now, you see the picture to the right on this screen. That's actually a picture from my cell phone of hard-boiled eggs. And you notice that there's a name, male's name written on each egg. So what happens in my family is I put the hard-boiled eggs on the counter to cool, and my husband comes by with a Sharpie and names them, or puts funny pictures on them, or draws tic-tac-toe on them. And it's a crack up actually, because I never know what I'm going to get on a hard-boiled egg. But the point is that use of humor in my just coming down the stairs and finding something weird on a hard-boiled egg, that's a stress reliever for me, because I laugh because it's ridiculous and silly. But humor really helps with relationships, and humor helps your own soul to feel joyful and to stay healthy. One of the things that I like to tell my doctoral students is that it's hard to learn. At any stage of your life, it's hard to learn. One of my granddaughters just is in transitional kindergarten, and she's learning her letters. And watching her go through the process of learning her letters is just as difficult as watching some doctoral students try to get through a chapter 2. Watching my granddaughter try, she's got teeny, teeny feet and a big head. She's a year and a half. And watching her learn how to walk, was hilarious. And I could see how difficult it was for her to learn how to walk, but every time she fell, she laughed. Every time she fell, she laughed, because my daughter has built into her just a, oops, I fell, get up again. But to circle back around to that, it's really important to identify and articulate with your students that learning hurts and it's hard, no matter what stage of life you're at or what you're trying to learn. And keeping that frame around it kind of norms it for them, so they don't feel like it's the end of the world and they're never going to succeed, because they all learned how to walk and tie their shoes and read in the first place. And actually, that's how I use humor with my students, but just giving them those little anecdotal stories.
Absolutely. And I was just looking over at the chat where someone said, my dogs provide me with lots of laughs. Absolutely. Pets, children, like you said, watching your granddaughter learn to watch. We do a thing where we record all of the America's Funniest Home Videos, and then in evenings where we're all home, we'll watch them together. And they're just absolutely ridiculous. But laughing and then having people around you laughing at the same thing just does wonders for the soul. So humor is absolutely essential.
Yes, absolutely. So I love this graphic, because what we see in others and what others see in us are just that top step, the first, second, third, I did it, I made it, I achieved. And what we don't see in others and people don't recognize in us oftentimes is all of that other that's below the surface. The desire, the passion, the focus, the effort, the training, failure, the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. So give yourself a break. You've done a lot, and there's a lot underneath that you're accomplishing and that you're trying to do that people will never be able to see. And on the same token, it's important for us to think about what we're not seeing in the efforts of others. Okay, so we're going to take just a few minutes now, based on the research. We're going to give you just a few minutes, either in the chat or on a piece of paper. What can you do to develop a quick sheet of reminders to keep yourself centered? So one of the things I've said to my students is say to yourself, self, pointing your finger back at yourself. Self, I am going to take 3 deep breaths. Self, I'm going to go take a walk. Self, I'm going to drink a cup of hot tea. Self, I'm going to get in my car and drive to the beach. Self, I'm going to go play ball with my dog. Self, I do a lot of work, and I'm going to write down everything I've done today so I feel a little better about myself. Self, I'm going to watch something funny on TV to laugh and get myself into a better place. So I've given you some ideas. What's your plan?
So I just wrote mine, and I said what I've been doing. This is just probably in the past, I would say 4 months maybe. I have learned to practice self-care every single day, and it varies, but some of the things that I've been doing that I really look forward to is good coffee at my desk. We bought a coffee grinder. I buy coffee beans, and I like when I come in the morning, my kids go to school, I just really enjoy having a good cup of coffee. Later that turns into water, or water with lemon or water with cucumber in it, but something that just feels a little bit indulgent as I sit down to work. Also, when things get a little heated and I open those emails and I think, oh boy, what next? Like you said, I make sure just to take a moment and breathe. It's not necessarily formal meditation, but it may be just 30 seconds of focusing on my breath, looking out my window at the lake, just kind of removing myself from that negative situation. And then, of course, I already mentioned the gratitude journal. And I could go on because there are just so many brilliant ways. And yeah, here they are coming in. So audiobooks, absolutely. Audiobooks, you make yourself take short breaks throughout the workday. That's tough to do when we work online. I have found that not setting the notification button on my cell phone for emails has been extremely helpful. So when I'm sitting there, the light doesn't flash and it doesn't beep when a work email comes in. I have to physically go in and check it. Otherwise, we are on demand 24/7. So exercise, excellent.
Yes, exercise. It's the best. Nothing's better than a good sweat, in my opinion.
And I love during the summertime walking out and walking barefoot in the grass and just kind of being in touch with nature. Okay, here's another one. Listen to music of your choice. This person likes the blues and jazz. Brief exercises, walk in the park, playing ping pong, shoot baskets.
Yeah.
So for you, it sounds like the physical piece really helps. So that's great. I'm going to tell you, the key here is knowing what works for you, because what works for me may not work for you or for someone else. So it's really imperative that you find out what you enjoy and what makes you feel good and what's going to prevent you from those negative feelings and potentially burning out.
And
so
Heather,
it's important.
You do a really good job. I've noticed that you do a really good job of putting boundaries around yourself. And that's something that I kind of wanted to say to everyone. Do you have boundaries for your work week? I have not been good at boundaries for quite some time. And just recently, I decided to put a do not disturb on my phone from 8 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning. I'm available from 7 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. That's 13 hours a day that I'm available to people. So I needed to start putting a better boundary around my time. Now, some people like to work till 2 in the morning. That's great. But I need to pull myself off the grid. Otherwise, I don't get good sleep, and I'm not as good with people. So putting boundaries around yourself, and there's nothing wrong with taking a day off, having one day where you don't work.
Yep. And exactly. In this online world, it really seems as though that I know way too many people who are working 7 days a week and many hours per day. And I try to tell myself, you know what? I'm just not that important. I don't need to work. We live in a world right now where the word busy is glamorized. So if we're busy, well, we must be worthwhile. We must be special. We must be needed if we're busy, right? And so I've really taken steps to set up those boundaries. It's funny you said that, because during this presentation, 2 emails came in, and it's asking me to be a reviewer for a journal. And I used to be a reviewer for this journal. And I said today, no, I've got so much on my plate, I really don't want to add one more thing. Right. Earlier in the week, a colleague asked me to be a research partner with her to write a research study. And I said, let me think about it. And it took me about an hour. And I realized it was causing me stress just thinking about the extra time I was going to have to put in. And I just replied and I said, thanks so much for the offer. Good luck, but I'm going to step back on this because I'm already doing enough things that I feel, good about. So Rodney just said busy has become the new norm, and we honestly our society has glamorized being busy. Shuffling your kids to this, that, and the other thing, and just no downtime. So I think it's really, really important in this world to make sure that we have some of these reminders for ourselves and to figure out what works. Yeah, so somebody said working from home 100% can make you feel like a recluse. It has been a really negative thing for my willingness to socialize with others, trying to be intentional about getting out more and actually talking to folks via sending an email message. Absolutely.
And one thing that you said, Heather, that I think is really important is that let me think about it, because I think that our society values a quick answer and a quick response, and you get praised. I get praised because Dr. Cord, if you're on it, you're responding right away. Sometimes it's within 5 minutes. I do that. That's true. But I've had to put the brakes on that a little bit and say, when people ask me about stuff, say, let me think about it, because there's nothing wrong with thinking about it. There's nothing wrong with a slower response. That way you can really look at what you're doing. I triple booked myself so many times last year that I had to make a rule. For me, I call them rules, and I can follow my own rules because they're rules for me and not for anybody else. But one of my rules is let me think about it, because I need to check my calendar. I need to check my energy levels. I need to check with my family and the others who are the most important in my life. And there's nothing wrong with that. So again, that quick answer, that thing that's valued is actually not always the best thing you can do for yourself. Let me think about it.
Absolutely. And here's a perfect example. We're all sitting here looking at a computer screen, and I've probably received about 8 emails in the last 30 minutes with people who have questions and they want some things from me. And obviously I can't reply because we're in this presentation, but my mind is telling me the second this gets done, I need to shoot out a response. And that's really just unrealistic. It's unnecessary. Right. It's 4:30 my time. I'm wrapping up the day. Not one bad thing would happen if I shut this computer off and waited and replied until morning. But we are so programmed that immediately we need to reply and get this done because we live in an instantaneous world. We just do.
But in that instantaneous world, you become very overwhelmed and you lose your joy very quickly. And a lot of times I
Absolutely.
feel like people like us are very driven people and efficient people. And we love what we do and we want to be good at it, but we also need
Mm-hmm.
to remember self-care and that you can't be good at everything if you don't give yourself time to recharge and to be grateful and to think about things and to connect with others. So you know how to take Heather, I also heard you say that you had the email message that used to come through, the ding. Do you
Mm-hmm.
have your computer dings when you get a new email?
No, my phone used to.
Oh,
I usually keep my computer on mute, but my phone, even just the flashing light when you have a notification. So I simply
I turned off my notifications and I figured
shut
out,
off the notifications
yeah,
for work email on my
I,
phone.
I shut off the notifications for work email on my phone, but I also did it in the browser in our faculty portal because I was
Sure.
getting my computer would ding and it would stress me out and it flashes the light.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you all know, if you want to disable that, send us an email. I'll show you how. It took me a while to figure it out. It's in your notification settings. And that's one of the biggest things that stresses me out because I get a ding and a bright light and then I feel like, oh,
Yeah.
it's an emergency. I need to respond right away. No,
Right.
no.
No, we don't. And it sounds silly that something that simple could make such a big difference in our day to day. But when we're reading papers and we're doing work and those emails come in, how many times do you drop what you're doing and you go and you reply to the email? Because that's work too, right? But realistically, I think those notifications do cause stress.
We have a list of resources, and there's the QR code for that is up on the screen. If you scan that, it'll take you to our Word document of resources and references that we used to develop this presentation.